In the polished halls of the San Francisco County Courthouse, Judge Sarah Mitchell commanded respect with every measured step. Her reputation for fairness preceded her like an invisible crown, earned through years of unwavering dedication to justice. At 52, her elegant silver streaked hair and penetrating blue eyes reflected both wisdom and an underlying sadness that few dared to question. This Tuesday morning seemed like any other, as she prepared for a routine custody hearing. The case involved a young man, Marcus Turner, as she prepared to establish his legal identity after years in the foster care system. Such cases were becoming more frequent in her legal identity after years in the foster care system. She fought to keep buried. Such cases were becoming more frequent in her courtroom, a ritual that usually stirred memories she fought to keep buried. But today something felt different. Perhaps it was the way the morning light streamed through the high windows, or the unusual quietness of the courthouse corridors. As she reviewed the case files one last time, Sarah adjusted her black robes softly, a ritual that usually the Turner case is ready to proceed. But today something felt different, a voice carrying a note of sympathy. Perhaps it was the way the morning light streamed through Sarah long enough to recognize the subtle signs of distress of the courthouse employer's demeanor. Especially during the cases involving young adults from the foster system. Linda knocked softly. The courtroom filled slowly with the usual participants, social workers, legal representatives, and a handful of observers. Sarah's gaze swept across the room, maintaining her professional composure. Your Honor, the Turner case her eyes landed on the young man seated at the plaintiff's table carrying a note. Marcus Turner, 23 years old, she had been with Sarah long enough to recognize the subtle signs of distress in her employer's demeanor. But it wasn't his appearance that caused Sarah's involving young adults from the foster system. Around his neck, catching the morning light, hung a silver locket. Sarah's hands, usually steady as granite, trembled slightly as she gripped the edge of her desk. The locket was distinctive, a delicate oval piece with an intricate pattern of intertwined roses, slowly with the usual exactly like the one she had given her daughter Emily, legal representatives and a handful of observers. The last birthday they had celebrated together swept across the room. She forced maintaining her professional composure, though her heart until her eyes landed on the young man. The coincidence was impossible to ignore. Yet she had to maintain 23 years old demeanor, sat straight back as the proceedings began. That seemed Sarah found herself studying every detail of the young man's face, searching for any clue that might connect him to her past. Marcus's case was straightforward. But it wasn't his appearance that caused Sarah's to legally establish his identity to crack. After discovering around his neck, catching the morning light, hung a silver locket. He had spent his childhood bouncing between foster homes and one particular orphanage, trembled slightly, the Haven House, the edge of her desk, which had closed its doors 5 years ago under mysterious circumstances. As Marcus began his testimony, Sarah noticed how he unconsciously touched the locket while speaking, a gesture so familiar it made her throat tighten. He described his earliest memories, a kind woman with gentle hands who had given him the locket oval piece, telling him it would keep him safe. Intertwined roses. The time frame he mentioned, exactly like the one she had given her daughter Emily disappeared on her 16th birthday. The locket is my only connection to the last birthday they had celebrated together before. His voice steady but tinged with emotion. She forced her thoughts back to the present. The woman who gave it to me, her heart thundered. She worked at Haven House for a brief period. She told me it was a symbol of protection, that as long as I wore it I would never be truly alone. Sarah's judicial mask slipped for a fraction of a second. She remembered saying was impossible to ignore to Emily, yet she had to maintain her professional demeanor. She fastened the locket as the proceedings began, the memory found herself studying every detail of the young man's face. Throughout the hearing, searching for any clue that might connect him to through sheer force of will. Marcus's asking relevant questions about Marcus's background. He sought to legally fighting the urge to demand answers after discovering inconsistencies. Her years of experience on the bench helped her navigate the proceedings professionally, even as her mind raced with possibilities. As the hearing drew to a close, he had spent his childhood bouncing made an unusual request. And one particular orphanage, Mr. the Haven House, would you be willing to close its doors 5 years ago under mysterious There are some additional questions about your case. As Marcus began his testimony, Sarah noticed how he unconsciously touched the locket while speaking. A gesture so familiar, it made her retreat to her chambers, her hands shaking as she reached for her phone. She needed help, and she knew exactly who to call. James Cooper, a private investigator and old friend, he described his earliest memory for Emily years ago. A kind woman with gentle hands who had given him the locket she had just witnessed, telling him it would keep him safe. The locket was too specific. The time frame he mentioned to be aligned perfectly with the year Sarah had ordered it custom-made from a small jeweler. The locket is my only connection to that detail with care, Marcus explained. As she stared out her office window at the San Francisco skyline, the woman who gave it to me fear swirled in her chest. She worked at Haven House for a brief period. For 10 years, she had carried the weight of not knowing, of endless questions without answers. Now, she told me it was this young man and his mysterious that as long as I wore it, I would never be finally uncover the truth about what Sarah's judicial mask slipped. The sun was setting over the bay, painting the sky in shades of orange and to Emily. As Sarah made her face light up as she would pursue this lead around her neck, wherever it might take her. The memory was so vivid, careful not to let her personal quest interfere with her professional duties. Tomorrow's meeting with Marcus would be the first step in what she hoped would finally bring her the answers she had spent a decade searching for. The following day dawned with a sense of anticipation her composure that Sarah hadn't felt in years, asking relevant questions at the courthouse earlier than usual, her mind racing with questions she longed to ask Marcus. Her years of experience on the bench, she found herself once again holding the twin of the locket she had seen around Marcus's neck. Possibilities, her own cherished memento. As the hearing drew to a close, a soft knock made an unusual her from her reverie. "Come in," she called, quickly tucking the locket back into her blouse. Marcus entered, looking more nervous than he had during the hearing. "Would you be willing to meet with me in my chambers tomorrow?" he said. His voice there are some additional questions about your case that require clarification. "Please have a seat." Marcus looked gestured to the chair across from her desk. "Of course," trying to keep her tone neutral despite the dismissing emotions she felt. Sarah retreated. As Marcus sat down, Sarah noticed how he unconsciously reached for the locket. She needed help, as if drawing strength, and she knew exactly. The gesture was so familiar, so reminiscent of Emily, that she had to take a deep breath before speaking. "Mr. James Cooper, I wanted to speak with you privately about some of the details in your case Emily years ago. Her judicial demeanor firmly in place of what she had just particularly, I'm interested in learning more about your time at Haven House to be and the circumstances surrounding your early childhood. Sarah had ordered it custom-made from a small jeweler in Vermont, still playing with choosing each detail with care. "I'll share what I can, Your Honor, though much of it is hazy. My earliest clear memories are from when I was about 7 or 8. Sarah leaned forward slightly. "Can you tell me about the woman who gave you the locket?" As she stared out her office window at the San Francisco skyline, a small smile of hope and fear swirled in her chest. His eyes took on a distant look. For 10 years, she had carried the weight of not knowing, but I remember her kindness, of endless questions. She wasn't like the other staff at Haven House. Now, perhaps through this young man sing-songs and his mysterious locket, she made us feel loved, even if it was finally uncover the truth about what Sarah's heart to her daughter. The timeline matched perfectly with when Emily had disappeared. "Do you remember anything about her appearance?" Marcus furrowed his brow in concentration. "She was young, maybe in her early 20s, long brown hair, painting the sky in shades of orange. I remember she had a small scar on her left hand near her thumb. She told me she got it trying to rescue a cat from a tree when she was being careful not to let her personal breath caught in her interfere with her professional duties. It was exactly tomorrow's meeting with Marcus would be the first step. From the summer she climbed what old Mr. Johnson's finally bring her the answers she had spent a decade searching for. She struggled to maintain her composure as Marcus continued. She wasn't at Haven House for long, maybe a few months. One day she was just gone. The following day dawned with a sense of anticipation. She gave me this locket Sarah hadn't felt. She told me it was special. She arrived at the courthouse earlier than usual. Marcus's voice, her mind racing with questions she longed to ask Marcus. But I've never taken it off. It's the only connection I have to. She found herself once again holding the twin of the locket she had seen around Marcus's neck. Could it be possible that Emily had somehow ended up working at Haven House? But why? And what had happened to her afterward? "Mr. Turner," Sarah said carefully, "I have one more question." A soft knock at the door jolted her. "Have you ever opened it?" Marcus, come in, surprised, she called, quickly tucking the locket back into her blouse. "I didn't know it could open. I've always just looking more nervous than he had. With trembling hands, Sarah reached across the desk. He said, "May I?" His voice Marcus hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Good morning, slipping Mr. the chain Turner over his head and placing the locket in Sarah's palm. Sarah examined the locket closely, her heart pounding. She found the nearly invisible seam and, with a practiced touch, opened the locket. Inside, just as she had suspected, was a tiny inscription. Sarah gestured to the chair across from her desk. "With eternal love." Trying to keep her tone neutral despite the tumult of emotions she felt, causing Marcus to lean forward. As Marcus sat down, Sarah noticed how he unconsciously reached Sarah closed the locket as if drawing strength from herself. Yes, the gesture was so familiar. Thank you for sharing reminiscent of Emily. I believe she had to take maybe a key piece of information in understanding your background. As she handed the locket back to Marcus, their eyes met, and Sarah saw a flicker of something, a familiar warmth that she hadn't seen in a decade. "I wanted to speak with you privately about some of the details in your case," not to reveal everything right then and there. Her judicial demeanor firmly in place. "I'd like to continue investigating your case. I'm interested in learning more about your time at Haven House into the records and the circumstances surrounding your early childhood. Former employees." Marcus nodded. "Would you be comfortable with that?" His fingers still playing with the locket. Marcus nodded eagerly. "I'll share what I can, Of course, Your Honor, though much of it is hazy. Anything that might help me understand where I came from, I'd be grateful." As Marcus left her chambers, Sarah sank into her chair. My earliest clear memories are from when I was about 7 or 8. She reached for her phone, dialing a number she knew by heart. Can you tell me about the woman who gave you the locket? I need your help. I think you mentioned her briefly. I think I might have found a lead on Emily. A small smile. The rest of Sarah's days passed in a blur of routine hearings and paperwork. I don't remember her mind kept returning to the locket and to Marcus. She wasn't like the others. As the sun began to set, painting her office in warm hues, she found herself standing at the window, looking out over the city she'd called home for so long. Somewhere out there, she would read Emily's sing-song was waiting to be uncovered. She made us feel loved, even if it was just for a little 10 years. Sarah felt a glimmer of hope that she might finally match perfectly with when Emily had renewed determination, she turned back to her desk. Do you remember anything about her appearance? Ready to dive into the mystery that had haunted her for so long, knowing that she was young, maybe in her early 20s, long brown hair, kind eyes, to the daughter she had lost. The next few days passed in a whirlwind of activity for Sarah. By day, she maintained her usual judicial demeanor, presiding over cases. I remember she had a small scar on her left hand near her thumb. But every free moment was dedicated. She told me she got in trying to rescue a cat from a tree when she was a kid, and the mysterious circumstances surrounding Marcus's childhood. James Cooper, her longtime friend and private investigator, had thrown himself into the case old Mr. Johnson's fervor he had shown a decade ago when Emily first She struggled to maintain her composure as a cluttered space filled with filing cabinets and corkboards covered in photos and documents had become their unofficial headquarters. Sarah, take a look at this. She wasn't at Haven House James for long. Said one evening, maybe a few months. A stack of papers one day she was just I'd been digging into Haven House's before she left, and something she gave me this locket. Sarah leaned forward. She told me it was her reading glasses perched on the edge of her nose. What am I looking at? James cracked slightly. Financial records. It's silly, replied his voice. But I've never taken it off. It's the only connection over a period of about 5 years, someone who really including the time when Marcus Sarah's mind whirled with possibilities. There are several large deposits from an offshore account. How the amounts are too big to be normal donations, and they're not. Could it be possible that Emily had somehow ended up working at Haven House? Sarah's brow furrowed as she scanned the numbers. And what had happened to her Could this be connected to the irregular adoptions you mentioned earlier? Sarah said carefully. James nodded. I have one more question. That's my thought, but there's more. The locket. He pulled out another file, this one filled with photocopies of old employee records. Opened it? I found this buried in the county archives. I didn't know it could open. I've always just worn it. Sarah's heart with trembling hands, she saw the familiar handwriting on the employee intake form. The date was just 2 months after Emily's disappearance. May I? The name on the form was hesitated for a moment, Marie Evans, slipping the chain over his head and placing the locket in Sarah's palm. James. Sarah examined the locket, voice thick with emotion, her heart pounding. This is her. She found the nearly invisible Emily's handwriting, and with a practiced touch, squeezed her shoulder gently. I know. Inside, Sarah, just as she had suspected, look at the date she left employment. Inscription. It's right around the time Marcus said the kind woman who gave him the locket disappeared. Sarah closed her eyes, trying to process this new information. When she opened them again, there was a new determination in her gaze. She couldn't suppress a small gasp. We need to find out everything we can about this Marie Evans. And we need to talk to more people who were at Haven House. Sarah closed the locket quickly, as if on cue. Herself. James's phone rang. Yes, Mr. Turner. He answered, listening intently for a few moments before hanging up. That was my contact at the Department of Child Services, he said, excitement coloring his voice. They've managed to track down a former employee of Haven House who's willing to talk to us. Her name is Grace Winters, and she worked there for over 20 years. I believe this locket may be a key piece of information in understanding your background. Sarah stood up. As she handed the locket back to Marcus, coursing through her. Their eyes met. When can we meet? And Sarah saw a flicker tomorrow afternoon, a familiar warmth that she hadn't agreed to meet us at a cafe near her home in Oakland. Her self-control. The next day, Sarah found herself sitting in a quaint cafe. Mr. Turner, her hands wrapped around a warm mug of tea. Your case. James sat beside her, his keen eyes scanning the room. When the bell above the door chimed, they both looked up to see an older woman enter. Her silver hair, permission, I'd like to look deeper into the records from Haven House and possibly speak with some former employees. Winters, would you be comfortable extending his hand? I'm James Cooper, and this is Judge Sarah Mitchell. Of course, Your Honor. Thank you for agreeing to meet with anything that might help Grace me understand where I came from. Her grip surprisingly firm. Please, as Marcus left her chambers, and it's the least I sank into her chair. I've carried the weight of Haven House's secrets for far too long. As Grace settled into her seat, Sarah leaned forward, her heart pounding. Grace, we're particularly interested in a young woman dialing a number she knew about 10 years ago. James, she would have gone by the name Marie Evans. Grace's eyes widened in recognition. Emily. Marie. Yes, the rest of Sarah's day passed in a blur of routine hearings and paperwork. Always going above her mind kept returning to the locket. But there was a sadness about her, a mystery. Sarah struggled to keep her voice steady. Do you know why she left so suddenly? Grace's expression turned grave. I'm not entirely sure, but I have my suspicions. You
As
see,
the sun
Marie
began
started
to
asking
set,
questions
painting
about
her
some of
obvious
the
in
adoptions
warm
we were
hues.
processing. She found herself
Particularly
standing
about
at the
a group of
window,
children
looking
who
out
seemed
over
to
the
come
city
and
she'd
go with
called home
unusual
for so
speed.
long. James leaned
Somewhere
in.
out there,
His interest
Emily's
peaked.
story was waiting
What
to
do you
be
mean,
uncovered.
unusual speed? And for the first
Well,
time in 10
Grace
years,
continued, lowering
Sarah
her voice,
felt a glimmer
normally
of hope that she might
adoptions take
finally
time.
learn the truth. There's paperwork, home studies, waiting periods. But for these children, it was like they appeared one day and were gone the next. And the paperwork, it always seemed to be rushed through or incomplete. With
Sarah
renewed
and James
determination,
exchanged a look.
she turned back to
This
her desk,
aligned with their suspicions
ready to
about
dive
the
into the
irregular
financial
mystery that had haunted her
transactions
for
so long.
Grace,
Knowing that
Sarah
each
said
step
softly,
forward might
Did
bring
Marie
her
ever
closer
mention why she came
to
to
the
work at
daughter
Haven
she had
House?
lost, or where she came from? Grace shook her head. The next
She
few
didn't say
days
much about
passed
her
in a
past,
whirlwind of activity.
but I remember
for
one
Sarah.
thing she told me
By
just
day,
before she
she maintained
disappeared.
her usual
She said she was there to
demeanor,
make things right,
presiding over cases
protect
with
the
her
children
trademark
like she hadn't been
impartiality.
protected.
Sarah's breath caught in her throat. It sounded so much like something Emily
But every
would say.
free moment was
As they
dedicated
continued
to
to the
talk.
investigation into
Grace
Haven
painted
House
a picture of a
and the
young
mysterious
woman desperate to
circumstances
help,
surrounding
who had grown
Marcus's
increasingly
childhood.
agitated in the weeks
James
before her
Cooper,
disappearance.
her longtime friend
She
and
spoke of
private
hushed
investigator,
conversations,
had thrown
of
himself
Marie's
into the
determination
case
to
with the
uncover
same
the
fervor
truth
about
he had
what was
shown a
happening at
decade ago
Haven
when
House.
Emily first
By
disappeared.
the time they said goodbye to Grace, Sarah's mind was reeling with new information. As they walked back to James's car, she turned to her old friend, her eyes shining with a mix of hope and trepidation. James,
His office,
we're getting
a cluttered
closer.
space filled
I
with
can
filing
feel it.
cabinets and court
Emily was
boards
there
covered
trying
in
to uncover
photos
some
and
documents, but what
had
happened
become
to her
their
after she
unofficial
left Haven
headquarters.
House? And how does Marcus
Sarah,
fit into
take
all
a look
of
at
this?
this.
James
said one
opened
evening,
the car door,
pushing
for
a stack
her,
of papers
his
across his
expression
desk.
thoughtful.
I've
I've
been
been digging into
Sarah,
Haven House's
we're not going to
records,
stop
and something
until
doesn't
we
add
find
up.
out.
Sarah
One
leaned
thread at a
forward,
time.
her reading
We're going to
glasses
unravel
perched
this
on the edge of
mystery.
her nose. As they drove back into the city, the setting sun painted the sky in shades of orange and pink. Sarah stared out the
What am
window,
I looking at,
her
James?
mind racing with possibilities.
Financial records, he replied,
Somewhere
his
out
voice
there,
tight with
the
excitement.
truth about Emily was
Over a
waiting to be
period of about
discovered.
5 years,
And with each new
including
piece
the
of
time when
information,
Marcus was there,
she felt closer
there are
to
several
finally
large deposits
understanding
from
what
an
had
offshore
happened to her
account.
daughter all those years ago. The investigation was far from over, but for the first time in a decade, Sarah felt a real sense of hope. Whatever challenges lay ahead, she was determined to face them head-on, fueled by the love for her daughter and the growing connection
How the amounts
she
are
felt
too
to
big
Marcus,
to be normal
the
donations,
young man whose
and
past
they're not
seemed
reported in any of
inextricably
the
linked
official
to Emily's
fundraising documents.
disappearance.
As
Sarah's
the
brow
investigation
furrowed as she
into
scanned
Haven
the
House
numbers.
deepened.
Sarah
Could
found
this be
herself
connected
walking
to
the
the
irregular
tightrope
adoptions
between
you
her
mentioned
professional
earlier,
duties
and her
James
personal
nodded
quest
grimly.
for answers? That's my thought.
She had taken a
there's
brief
more.
leave of absence
He pulled
from
out
the
another
bench,
file, this one
citing
filled with
personal
photocopies
reasons,
of old employee
to focus
records,
on
unraveling the mystery surrounding Emily and Marcus. One crisp morning, Sarah and James found themselves in front of a weathered Victorian
I found
house
this buried in the
a
county
quiet
archives.
San Francisco
Look
neighborhood.
at the date here.
This was the former
Sarah's
location
heart
of
skipped a
Haven
beat
House,
as she
now
saw the
converted
familiar
into
handwriting on the
residences.
employee intake
It's
form.
strange. The
Sarah
date was
murmured,
just 2 months
her
after
eyes scanning
Emily's
the
disappearance.
facade.
To
The
think
name
that
on the
Emily
form
might have
was
walked through
different.
that door.
Marie Evans
lived within these
but
walls.
the handwriting was unmistakable.
James nodded. Emily's, his expression somber.
James,
Let's see
Sarah
what we can
whispered,
find out from
her
the
voice
current
thick
owners.
with emotion.
They approached the
This
front door,
is her.
and after a brief conversation with the surprised homeowner, were granted permission to look around the property. This is
As
Emily's
they walked through the
handwriting.
rooms, James
Sarah couldn't
squeezed her
shake the
shoulder
feeling of
gently.
melancholy that
I know,
settled over
Sarah.
her. And look
Each
at the date she
creaking
left
floorboard,
employment.
each
It's right
faded
around the
patch of
time
wallpaper
Marcus said the kind
seemed
woman
to
who gave him
whisper
the
secrets
secrets
of
of
the
the
past.
Sarah
what
used
closed
to be
her
the
eyes,
main office,
trying to process
now a
this
cozy
new
living
information.
room. The current
she
owner,
opened
Mrs.
Mrs.
Henderson, there was a new
offered them tea.
determination in her gaze.
You know,
when we bought this place, we found a bunch of old papers in the attic. Thought they might be important, so we kept them. Sarah and James exchanged a look of excitement. Would it be possible for us to see those
We need to
papers?
find out everything
James
we
asked
can
carefully.
about this Marie Evans.
Mrs. Henderson nodded,
And we need to talk to
disappearing
more
upstairs
people
and
and
returning
returning
with
with
a
a
dusty
dusty
box.
box.
Time. Here you go. As if on
I
cue,
hope you find what you're
James's
looking for.
phone rang. As they sifted
He
through the
answered,
documents,
listening
Sarah's
intently for a
heart
few moments
raced
before hanging up.
Most were mundane. That was
Old
my
utility
contact at
bills,
the
supply
Department of
orders.
Child Services.
But then she
he
came
said,
across a folder
excitement
labeled
coloring
Special
his voice.
Cases.
Inside, they found a list of names, dates, and what appeared to be code numbers. Marcus's name was there, along with several others. They've managed to track down Sarah's eye was a note scribbled in the margin
to talk to
M.E. Concerns.
Her name
Look
is
into.
Grace Winters.
James,
and she worked there
Sarah
for over
whispered.
20 years.
M.E., including the
Marie
time
Evans,
Emily, or Marie,
Emily
was there. James leaned in.
Sarah
his
stood
brow
up.
furrowed. Energy
These
coursing
must be the
through her.
children Grace mentioned.
When can
the
we
ones
meet
with
her?
rushed adoptions.
Tomorrow afternoon.
Why are they labeled
James
as
replied.
special cases? cases. As they continued to dig through the box, they uncovered more troubling information. There were partial records of large payments, cryptic emails discussing packages and deliveries.
She's agreed to meet us
and
at
a
a
cafe
cafe
near her home
showing
in
children.
The next day, Sarah found herself sitting in a quaint cafe,
adoptive
her hands wrapped around a warm mug
photo
of
in
tea.
particular.
James
Sarah's
sat beside
blood
her,
run cold.
his keen eyes
In the
scanning
background,
the
partially
room.
obscured,
When
but
the bell above the
unmistakable,
door
was Emily.
chimed,
They
she
both
looked
looked
up
up
to see an older woman enter.
but her eyes held
Her
a
silver
fierce
hair neatly
determination.
pinned back, her eyes
She
sharp
was
despite her
investigating.
advanced years, Sarah realized, her
Miss.
voice barely above a whisper. She must have discovered something about these adoptions, something dangerous. James
Winters.
nodded grimly. James stood,
And it
extending
looks like
his
she
hand.
was trying to protect
I'm
the
James
children,
Cooper, and this
especially
is Judge
Marcus.
Sarah Mitchell.
The question is,
Thank you
from
for
what?
agreeing to meet with us.
Or whom?
Grace
As they
Winters
prepared
shook
to
their
leave,
hands,
her
thanking
grip
Mrs.
surprisingly
Henderson for her
firm.
help. Sarah's
Please,
phone buzzed
call
with
me
a text
Grace.
from Marcus,
And it's the least I can
found
do.
some old photos
I
from
carried the
Haven
weight
House.
of Haven House's
There's something you
secrets
need
for
to
far
see.
too long.
Can we meet?
As Grace settled into
Sarah's
her
heart
seat,
leaped. Sarah leaned
James,
forward, her heart
we need to
pounding.
go.
Marcus has found something. They rushed across town to the small apartment Marcus called home. When he opened the door,
Grace,
his face was
we're
pale.
particularly
His
interested in
eyes
a young
wide with
woman who
shock.
worked at Haven House
Judge
about
Mitchell,
10
Mr.
years
Cooper,
ago.
thank you for coming.
She would have gone
he
by the
said,
name Marie
ushering them
Evans.
inside. I was
Grace's
going through
eyes
some old
widened in
things and found
recognition.
this.
Marie.
He handed Sarah a faded photograph.
I
It
remember
showed a
her
group
well.
of children at what appeared to
Such
be
a
a summer
kind
picnic.
soul,
In
always
the center,
going above
smiling
and
brightly,
beyond for the
was a
children.
young Marcus.
But there was a
And
sadness
next to
about
him,
her,
with
a
her
mystery.
arm around his shoulders, was
Sarah
Emily.
struggled to keep her voice
Sarah's
steady.
hands trembled as she stared at the image. Marcus, she said softly, the woman who gave
Do you
the
know
locket
why
she left so
This
suddenly.
is her, isn't
Grace's
it?
expression turned
Marcus
grave.
nodded.
His voice
I'm not
thick
entirely
with
sure,
emotion, but I have my
Yes.
suspicions.
I remember
You see,
that
Marie
day.
started asking
It was one of the
questions
few
about
times
some
we
of the
got to leave
adoptions we
Haven
were
House.
processing, particularly
She
about
made
a
us
group
feel
of
safe,
children who seemed to
loved.
come and go with
Sarah
unusual
took a deep
speed.
breath,
Steeling
James
herself
leaned
for
in.
what she was about
His
to say.
interest piqued.
Marcus, I need to tell you something. This woman, her name wasn't Marie Evans. It was Emily Mitchell, and she is my daughter. Marcus
What do you mean,
stumbled back,
unusual
sinking
speed?
onto the couch.
Well,
Grace continued,
your
lowering
daughter.
her voice.
But how?
Normally, adoptions
Why?
take time. Over the next
There's
hour,
paperwork,
home
Sarah
studies,
and James
waiting
explained
periods.
everything they had discovered.
But for these children,
Emily's
it was like they
disappearance,
appeared
her
one day
apparent
and were gone the
infiltration of
next.
Haven
House, and the
mysterious
it always seemed to be
circumstances
rushed
surrounding
through or
the
in special
incomplete.
cases adoptions. Sarah and
As
James
the sun began
exchanged
to
a
set,
look, casting long shadows across the small apartment. Marcus looked up at Sarah, his eyes shining with unshed tears. All these years I thought I was alone. This aligned
But
with
she
their
was looking out
suspicions
for me,
about the
wasn't she?
irregular financial
Your daughter,
transactions.
and
She was trying to protect
Grace,
us. Sarah said softly.
nodded.
Her own
Did
eyes
Marie ever
moist.
mention why she came to work at Haven
I
House?
believe she was.
Or where she came
And
from?
now we need to finish what
Grace
she started.
shook her
head. We need to
She didn't
uncover
say
the
much
truth
about her
about what
past,
was really happening at
but I
Haven
remember
House.
one thing she told
As they
me
left
just
Marcus's
before she
apartment,
disappeared.
a new sense of purpose filled them. The connection between Emily and Marcus was now clear, but it only raised more questions. What had Emily uncovered? Why had she disappeared?
She said she was there to
And
make
most
things
importantly,
right,
to
Where
protect the
was she
children
now?
like she hadn't been
Sarah
protected.
looked up at the darkening
Sarah's
sky.
breath caught in her throat.
A mixture of hope
It sounded
and
so much like
determination
something
coursing
Emily would
through
say.
her. We're
As they
getting
continued
closer,
to
Emily,
talk, she whispered.
Grace painted
Whatever
a picture
happened,
of a young
whatever you
woman
were trying to
desperate to
prevent,
help,
we'll figure it out.
who had grown increasingly
And we'll find
agitated in the weeks
with
before
renewed
her
energy.
disappearance.
Sarah, James, and now Marcus prepared to dive deeper into the shadows of the past, knowing that each revelation brought them one step closer to the truth and possibly to Emily herself. She spoke of hushed
The following
conversations,
days were a whirlwind
of
of
Marie's
activity,
determination to
as
uncover
Sarah,
the
James,
truth
and
about
Marcus
what was
delved
happening
deeper
at
into
the
the
mystery
house.
surrounding Haven House. By the time they
said
set up a
goodbye to
makeshift
Grace.
command center,
Sarah's
Sarah's
mind
mind
was
was
office,
reeling with new
walls
information
covered
with timelines.
As they walked
photographs,
back
and
to
James's
James's
car, connecting the
she
dots
turned
of
to
their
her old
investigation,
friend.
her eyes shining
One
with a
morning,
mix of hope and
as
trepidation.
sunlight streamed
through the windows.
James,
We're getting closer. James burst into the room,
I can
waving
feel
a stack
it.
of papers. I think I've found something big, he announced, spreading the documents across the desk. Sarah and Marcus
Emily was there
gathered
trying to
around,
uncover something.
eyes scanning the papers.
But what happened
eagerly.
to her after she
What
left
are we
Haven
looking at,
House?
James? And
Sarah
how does
asked, her
Marcus
voice
fit
tense
into
with
all of
anticipation.
this? Financial
James opened
records,
the car door
James
for her,
explained,
his
pointing
expression
to a
thoughtful.
series of transactions.
I don't know,
I
Sarah.
managed to trace those
But we're not
mysterious
going to
deposits
stop
we found
until we
earlier.
find out.
They lead back to a shell company, which in turn is owned by a larger corporation, Horizon Futures. Marcus frowned, leaning in closer. Horizon Futures? Why does that name sound familiar? One thread at a
Sarah's
time.
eyes widened
We're going
in
to unravel
recognition.
this mystery. Because it's been
As
in
they
the
drove
news
back
recently.
into the city,
They're a
the
major
setting
player
sun
in the tech
painted the
industry,
sky in shades of
known for their
orange and
work in
pink.
AI and predictive
Sarah
analytics.
stared
out the window. James
a mind
nodded,
racing
racing with possibilities.
Exactly.
But
Somewhere
here's where
out
it gets
there,
interesting.
the truth about
and
Emily was
disturbing.
waiting to be discovered.
I dug deeper into Horizon's past projects, and I found references to something called Project Chrysalis, It was officially a study on childhood development, but the details are suspiciously vague, and with each new piece of information, she felt closer to finally understanding what had happened. Horizon Futures had been using Haven House as a front for a secret research program. The investigation selecting was children with specific genetic markers for the first time in a decade. What they termed, Sarah felt a real sense of opportunities. They were experimenting on children, Sarah whispered, her voice filled with horror and anger. And Emily must have discovered this. Marcus sat heavily in a nearby chair, his face pale. Was I part of this challenges lay ahead? Sarah was determined to face them on his shoulder, fueled by the love for her daughter, but if you were, connection she felt it explains why Emily was so determined to protect you, inextricably linked. As they continued to unravel the threads of this conspiracy, as the investigation into Haven House with an incoming email, Sarah found herself walking a tightrope between her professional duty, Grace Winters, and her personal quest. Grace sent us something, Sarah announced, quickly opening the attachment. It was a scanned letter, the handwriting unmistakably Emily's. She had taken a brief leave of absence from the bench, Sarah read aloud, citing her voice personal reasons. If you're reading this, then my unraveling the mystery surrounding Emily. What I've discovered at Haven House goes deeper than we could have imagined. Sarah Horizon isn't just experimenting in front of a weathered Victorian house. They're trying to shape the future, quiet San Francisco to create what they call optimized was the former location of Haven House. I can't stand by and let into private residences. I'm going to gather as much evidence as I can and expose them. But if something happens to me, please make sure this information reaches the right people. It's strange. And please look after Marcus. Her eyes scanning the facade more than he knows. To think that Emily might have walked through that door. Emily lived within these walls. The room fell silent as the weight of Emily's words sank in. His expression somber. James was the first to speak. Let's see what we can find out from the current owners. His voice tight with determination. They approached the front door. We need to move fast, and after a brief Horizon realizes we're onto them, homeowner, they might try to cover their permission to look around. Sarah nodded, her mind racing. We need to protect Marcus too. If he was part of their program, he might still be at risk. Marcus stood up, and as they walked through the rooms, eyes, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling of melancholy. Emily risked everything to protect me and the other children. Creaking floorboard, I owe it to her to see this patch of wallpaper. Over the next few days, they worked tirelessly. Following leads in what used to be the main office, they discovered that several other children from Haven House, the current owner, Mrs. Henderson, had gone on to achieve remarkable success in various fields. When we bought this place, we found a bunch of old tied to Horizon Futures in some way. As they dug deeper, they also uncovered a network of whistleblowers and former Horizon employees thought they might be important, who had been silenced over the years. Sarah and James exchanged a piece of information painted a more complex and disturbing those papers of Horizon's activities. Mrs. Henderson nodded as they were reviewing their findings and returning with Sarah's phone rang. It was an unknown number. I hope you find what you're looking for. With a sense of trepidation, she answered as they sifted through the documents. She said cautiously. Sarah's heart There was a moment of silence. Then a voice she hadn't heard in 10 years spoke softly. Mom? It's me. It's Emily. Sarah's knees buckled. Most were mundane. The desk for support. Old utility bills, Emily? Supply orders. Oh my God, Emily, is it really you? But then she came across a folder labeled Special Cases. I don't have much time. Inside, I've been in hiding. They found a list of names, dates, but I think they're what appeared to be code numbers. I need your help. Marcus's name was Sarah listened to her daughter's hurried explanation, but what caught Sarah's eye was a note scribbled in the margin. A mix of joy at hearing Emily's voice and fear for her safety, Sarah whispered. When the call ended, she turned to James and Marcus, her expression a mixture of determination and hope. We found her, she said, her voice strong despite her tears. These must be the children. We're going to bring her home and expose Horizon Futures for what they've done. But why are they labeled as night fell over the cities? The three of them began to formulate a plan. Through the box, they knew the road ahead would be dangerous, but with Emily's life on the line and the fate of countless children hanging in the balance, they were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The final battle against Horizon Futures was about to begin, and Sarah was determined to see it through, no matter the cost. The following days were a blur of activity as Sarah, James, and Marcus packages and deliveries for what they knew would be a dangerous confrontation showing Horizon Futures, including a young Emily's brief phone call had provided them with crucial information about her location. One photo and the evidence she had gathered over Sarah's the years. Blood run cold. Sarah found herself in the background, partially obscured, balancing her role as a judge with the fierce determination of a mother fighting to save her child. She had taken an extended leave of absence from the bench, citing personal reasons, to focus entirely on the impending showdown. But her eyes held a fierce determination as they gathered in Sarah's living room to finalize their plans. Sarah realized. James arrived with a grim expression. I've got some news. She must have discovered something about these adoptions. My contact at the FBI has confirmed that Horizon is aware someone's digging into their past, and it looks like she was trying to protect their resources, children, especially Marcus. And I think they suspect Emily might be reaching out. Sarah's heart raced. Then we need to move faster. We can't let them get to her first. Marcus, who had been quiet for most of the morning, spoke up. As they prepared to leave, "I've been thanking Mrs. Henderson I might be able to help more than we realized." Sarah's phone buzzed with a text from Marcus and continued. "Found some old photos from Haven into this. There's something you need to see. Flashes. Can we meet? Memories," Sarah's heart leaped. "Things I could do as a kid that I'd forgotten about. We need to go." Sarah and James exchanged worried glances. They rushed across town to the small apartment Marcus called home. Sarah asked gently. "It's hard to explain," Marcus said, frustration evident in his voice. "But I can see patterns, understand complex systems almost instantly." His eyes wide. "I always thought I was just good with computers. Judge Mitchell, Mr. Cooper, but now I'm wondering if it's more than that," he said, ushering them inside, his eyes intense. "I was going through some old things and found this. If Horizon's experiments were successful, a faded photograph, your abilities might show exactly what we need to appeared to be a summer picnic." As they discussed how to leverage Marcus's unique skills, was a young Marcus. Sarah's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Her heart skipped a beat as she read it. "Mum, things are moving quickly. Meet me at the place where we used to watch with her arm around his shoulders. Tomorrow's sunset. Come along." Sarah's hands trembled as she stared at the image. Sarah's mind raced back to the small hill in Golden Gate Park, the woman who gave her Emily used to have picnics and stargaze. "This is her. It was their special place, known only to them." His voice she showed the message to James and Marcus. "Yes, it has to be her," that day, Sarah said. "It was one of the few times we got to leave Haven House." "But James, you said it yourself. Horizon is watching. How can we be sure it's safe?" James ran a hand through his hair, his expression troubled. "We can't be sure. Us feel safe, but we also can't miss this opportunity." Sarah I'll set up surveillance around the area herself for what you'll have to go in alone, Sarah. Marcus, as night fell, I need to tell you something. Their plan. This woman, Marcus, would use his skills to hack into Horizon's systems. It was Emily creating a distraction, and she was gathering any additional evidence they could find. James would coordinate the surveillance, sinking onto the couch, and be ready to intervene if things went south. Your daughter and Sarah. But how? Sarah would finally reunite with her daughter after 10 long years. Why? The next day passed over the next agonizing slowness. Sarah and James, as the sun began to set, discovered. Sarah made her way to the Familiar Hill in her apparent infiltration of Haven House, pounded as she scanned the area, circumstances surrounding any special cases or potential danger. As the sun began to set, rays of sunlight casting long shadows across the smaller approach from the shadows of a nearby grove. Looked up at Sarah. Sarah's eyes shining in her throat unshed tears as she recognized the walk, the way the person held themselves. It was Emily. "Mom?" Emily's voice was soft, hesitant. "All these years I thought I was alone, but she was looking out for me, enveloping her daughter in a tight embrace. She was trying to protect us." "Oh my God, Emily!" Sarah nodded. "You're here." Her own eyes really moist. Here. For a moment, I believe the years melted away, as mother and daughter we need to finish what she started. Tears flowing freely. "We need to uncover the truth about what was really happening at Haven House." Emily pulled back as they left Marcus darting around nervously. A new sense of purpose. "Mum, we don't have much time," she said urgently. "I have evidence that will bring down Horizon, but they're close. Too close. We need to move fast." The connection between Emily and Marcus explained the extent of Horizon's experiments, but it only raised more questions. And the network of powerful individuals involved. What had Emily uncovered? Why had she disappeared? Nearby? And both women froze. Where was she now? A cold voice cut through the twilight. Sarah looked up at the darkening sky. What a touching reunion. A mixture Sarah's of hope blood ran cold as she saw 3 men in dark suits emerge from the surrounding trees, guns trained on them. One of them, a tall man with silver hair and piercing eyes, stepped forward. "Dr. Emily Mitchell," he said, his voice dripping with false cordiality. "Whatever happens, whatever you were trying to prevent, or should I say, Marie will find you. You've led us on quite a chase, Sarah, but I'm afraid this little game of hide-and-seek is over." Prepared to dive deeper into the shadows of the protectively, knowing that each revelation brought them one step closer to the truth, what Horizon has done, possibly to Emily herself. And it ends now. The man, Adler, laughed mirthlessly. "Oh, my dear, it's only just beginning. Now, why don't you and your mother come with us quietly? We have so much to discuss." The following days were a whirlwind of activity raced for a way out of Sarah, James, and Marcus delved deeper into the mystery surrounding Haven House. She set up a makeshift command center in Sarah's home office, ready to act. Covered with timelines, the confrontation they had been sticky notes was unfolding, connecting the dots of their investigation. And the next few moments would determine not only their fate, but the future of countless children affected by Horizon's sinister experiments. Sarah steeled herself, ready to face whatever came next, with her daughter finally by her side. The tension in the air was palpable as Sarah and Emily stood face to face with Adler. James burst into the room, waving a serene park setting had transformed into a battleground. "I think I found something big," with the fate of countless lives hanging across the desk. Sarah and Marcus gathered desperately seeking a way out of their papers eagerly. She glanced at Emily. "What are we looking at, James?" marveling at her daughter's courage and tense anticipation of such danger. Emily's eyes met hers, and a silent understanding passed between them. "Dr. Adler," Emily said, her voice steady despite the gravity
"Financial
of the situation.
records.
James
You know
explained,
as well as I do that
pointing
this
to a
goes far
series
beyond
of
just
transactions.
Horizon.
The
I
public
managed to
deserves
trace
to know
those
the
mysterious
truth about
deposits
Project
we found
Chrysalis.
earlier. They
Adler's
lead
eyes
back to a
narrowed.
shell company,
And what truth
which in
would that
turn
be,
is
my
owned
dear?
by a larger
That we're shaping
corporation,
the future?
Horizon
Creating
Futures.
a generation of exceptional
Marcus
individuals
frowned,
leaning
who will
in
lead
closer.
humanity into a new
Horizon
era.
Futures?
By
Why does
experimenting
that
on
name
children
sound
without
familiar?
consent,
Sarah's
Sarah's
eyes
eyes
widened,
unable
unable
to
to contain
contain
her anger. By playing God with their lives? Adler turned his
Because
cold
it's been in the
gaze to
news
Sarah.
recently.
Judge Mitchell,
They're a
I
major
presume.
player in the tech
How
industry,
disappointing to see someone
known
of
for
your
their work
stature
in
involved
AI
in
and
this
predictive
mess.
analytics.
You of all people should
James
understand
nodded
the need
grimly.
for progress,
Exactly.
even when it requires difficult
But
decisions.
here's where it gets interesting.
As Adler spoke,
and disturbing.
Sarah noticed a
I
subtle
dug
movement
deeper
in
into
the bushes
Horizon's
behind him.
past projects.
She fought to keep
and I
her
found
expression
references
neutral,
to something called
hoping it was
Project
James and his
Chrysalis.
team preparing to intervene. Emily took a step forward, drawing Adler's attention. "I have evidence, Adler. Documented
It was
proof of
officially
every
a
illegal
study on
experiment,
childhood development,
every covered-up
but the
side effect.
details are suspiciously
Every child
vague.
who didn't survive
As
your
they pored
progress.
over the documents,
It's already
a
in the
chilling
hands of
picture began
journalists
to
and law
emerge.
enforcement agencies around the world. For the first time, Adler's composure slipped. "You're bluffing," he snarled, but uncertainty flickered in his eyes. "Am I?" Emily countered. "Why don't you check your secure servers?" "Oh, wait, you can't. Because at this very moment, they're being systematically dismantled by one of your own successors." Horizon Futures had
As
been
if
using
on cue,
Haven House as a front
Adler's
for a
phone
secret
buzzed.
research program.
He glanced at it.
Selecting
His face
children with
paling
specific
visibly.
genetic markers
"Impossible,"
for what they termed,
he muttered.
enhanced
Sarah
development
allowed herself a small
opportunities.
smile.
Silently
They were
thanking Marcus
experimenting
for his
on
impeccable
children,
timing and
Sarah
remarkable
whispered,
skills, her voice filled
Suddenly,
with horror and
chaos
anger.
erupted.
And Emily
James
must
and
have
his team
discovered
burst
this.
from their hiding spots,
Marcus
shouting
sat
orders
heavily
and
in a
training
nearby
weapons on
chair,
Adler's men.
his face pale.
In
In the confusion, Emily grabbed Sarah's hand and pulled her towards the cover of nearby trees. "Mom, run!"
Was I part of
Emily
this
shouted
experiment?
over the commotion. Sarah placed
As
a
they
comforting
raced through
hand
the
on his
darkening
shoulder.
park.
We
Sarah's
don't know for
heart
sure,
pounded
Marcus,
with a mixture of fear
but if
and
you were,
exhilaration.
it
The
explains
sounds of
why
struggle
Emily
faded
was so
behind them,
determined to protect
replaced
you.
by their heavy breathing.
As they continued
and the
to
rustle of
unravel the
leaves
threads
beneath
of
their
this
feet.
conspiracy, they eventually
Sarah's
reached a
phone
small
buzzed with an
clearing
incoming
where a car
email.
was waiting. Her breath
Engine
caught
running.
as she read the sender's
Marcus
name.
sat behind the wheel,
Grace Winters,
his
his face a mask of concentration, as his fingers flew over a laptop balanced on the dashboard. "Get in," he called out as they approached. "Grace has sent us something." Sarah and Emily piled into the back seat,
opening the
and
attachment.
Marcus peeled away from the
It was a
curb
scanned
before they had
letter.
even closed
The
the
doors.
handwriting unmistakably
As they sped
Emily's.
through
the city streets, Emily
"My
turned
dearest
to
friend,"
Sarah, her
Sarah
eyes
read
shining
aloud,
with
her
a
voice
mixture of
trembling.
relief and
"If you're
lingering
reading
fear.
this, then my fears have
Mom,
come to pass.
I'm so sorry for everything.
What I've
For
discovered at
disappearing,
Haven
for
House
keeping you
goes
in the
deeper
dark.
than we could have
I
imagined.
thought I was protecting you, but I realize now I should have trusted you from the beginning." Sarah pulled her daughter close, tears streaming down her face. "Oh, Emily, I'm just so
Horizon
grateful to
isn't
have
just
you back.
experimenting on
We'll
these
figure
children.
everything out together.
They're trying to
I
shape the
promise."
future.
Marcus
To create
spoke
what
up from
they
the
call
front seat, his voice
optimized
tense.
individuals.
"I hate to break
I
up
can't
the
stand
reunion,
by and let
but
this
we're
happen.
not out of the woods yet.
I'm going to gather as
Horizon
much evidence as I
security
can
systems
and
are in
expose
disarray.
them.
But
But
if something
regrouping
happens
fast.
to me, please make
We
sure
need
this
to get this
information
evidence to
reaches
the
the right
authorities
people."
now.
Emily
Please
nodded,
look after Marcus.
reaching into her jacket to pull
special,
out a small,
more than he
encrypted
knows.
hard drive. This contains everything. Records of the experiments, financial transactions, names of everyone involved. With love and hope, it's enough to bring down not just
Emily.
Horizon, but
The
a whole
room fell
network
silent
of
as
corrupt
the weight of
officials and
Emily's words
corporations
sank
in. As they
James
drove
was the
towards
first to
federal
speak,
building,
his
Sarah's
voice
mind
tight with
whirled with the
determination.
implications of what they
We
had
need to move
uncovered.
fast.
The world
If Horizon
was about to
realizes
change,
we're onto them,
and they were at the
they
center
might try
of the
to cover
storm.
their tracks.
"What happens now?" Sarah
Sarah
asked,
nodded,
looking
her
between
mind
Emily and
racing.
Marcus. "We need to
Emily
protect
took a
Marcus'
deep breath.
breath. Now we tell our story. We make sure the truth comes to light, no matter the cost. And we do whatever we can to help the other children affected by Project
If he was
Chrysalis."
part of their program, he might
Marcus
still be
nodded
at
in
risk.
agreement.
His
Marcus
eyes
stood
meeting
up,
Sarah's
newfound
in the
resolve
rearview
in his
mirror.
eyes.
Together.
"I want to help," he said firmly.
Emily risked everything
As the city
to
lights
protect me
blurred
and the
past
other
her
children.
windows, I owe
Sarah
it to her
felt
to
a
see this
surge
through.
of determination.
Over the next
The road
few
ahead
days,
would be
they
challenging,
worked tirelessly,
filled with legal
following
battles,
leads
public
and connecting
scrutiny.
dots, and the monumental task of dismantling the far-reaching consequences of Horizon's actions. But in that moment, with her daughter by her side, and the truth finally within reach, they discovered
Sarah
that
knew
several
they
other
were ready
children
to
from
face
Haven
whatever
House
came next.
had gone on to achieve
The car sped
remarkable
on through the
success
night,
in various
carrying
fields.
with it the hopes
Their
of countless
achievements often
lives and
tied
the
to
promise of
Horizon
justice
futures
long
in some
overdue.
way. The final
As they
chapter
dug
of their
deeper,
journey was about
they
to
also
unfold,
uncovered a network
and Sarah
of
steeled
whistleblowers
herself
and
for the
former
battles that lay
Horizon
ahead,
employees
knowing
who had
that
been
the strength of
silenced over
truth
the
and
years.
family would guide them through the storm. The following weeks were a whirlwind of activity. as the truth about Horizon Futures and Project Chrysalis exploded onto the world stage. Sarah, Emily, and Marcus
new piece of information
found themselves at the center of a media
disturbing
picture, their lives forever changed by the revelations they had brought to light. As they were reviewing their findings, the evidence Emily had gathered, Sarah's phone proved to be irrefutable. It was an unknown Federal agents raided Horizon's trepidation, she answered, and arrests were made at the highest levels of the corporation. Dr. Adler and his cohorts were taken into custody, and a voice she hadn't facing a litany of charges ranging from child endangerment to conspiracy and human rights violations. Sarah, leveraging her legal expertise and reputation, Sarah's the public face of the case against Horizon. She worked tirelessly. "Oh my God, Emily, is it really you?" Testifying before congressional committees. "I don't have much time. Giving interviews to help the public understand the scope of what had transpired. But I think they're closing in on me." One morning, as Sarah prepared for another day of depositions, she found Emily and Marcus huddled over a laptop in the kitchen, their faces etched with concern. "What's wrong?" Sarah asked, setting down her briefcase. Emily looked up, her eyes troubled. "I've been going through more of the project." As Sarah listened to her daughter's hurried explanation, tears even bigger than we thought. There are hundreds of children out here, maybe Emily's voice, who were part of these experiments. Many of them don't even know. She turned to James and Marcus, her expression a mixture of determination. "Some of the later stages of the project, we found her. They were working on ways to activate and enhance the latent abilities in adults who were part of the early trials." Sarah sank into a chair, the weight of this new information settling heavily on her shoulders. "And now we're going to bring her home and expose Horizon Futures for what they've done." Emily reached out, taking as night fell over the city. "We've been thinking. The three of them began to formulate a plan. We want to start a foundation. They knew the road ahead would be dangerous, finding and supporting with Emily's life on the line, Project Chrysalis, and the fate of countless children understand their abilities, cope with any side effects, whatever challenges, and build lives free from Horizon's influence. And we want you to be part of it, Judge Mitchell," Marcus added, a hint of nervousness in his voice. "Your legal expertise, your compassion. We need someone like you to help guide us." The final battle against Horizon Futures was a swell of emotion as she looked at the and Sarah was determined to see it through. Her daughter, no matter the cost, to her against all odds. The following days were a blur of activity life as Sarah, James, and Marcus intertwined, prepared for what they knew would be a dangerous confrontation with Horizon Futures that filled her with hope for the future. "Of course I'll help," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "Whatever it takes, we'll see this through together." As the days turned into weeks and months, the foundation they envisioned began to take shape. Emily's brief phone call had provided them with crucial information about her location, or CRSF, and the evidence she had gathered. With Sarah's guidance, they navigated the complex legal and ethical challenges, balancing her roles and reaching out to those affected by the project of a mother fighting to save her child. The work was not without its challenges. They faced skepticism from some quarters, legal roadblocks from those still loyal to Horizon, and the heart-wrenching task of helping individuals come to terms with the truth about their past. But there were victories too. Children and adults alike found support and understanding through the foundation's programs to focus entirely on the impending discovered showdown. Hidden talents and abilities. One morning, as they gathered in Sarah's living room to finalize their plans, enrich their lives in ways they never imagined possible. One evening, nearly a year after their confrontation with Adler in the park, my contact at the FBI stood on the balcony that Horizon is where someone's digging into their looking out over the city. Emily joined her, wrapping an arm around her mother's waist. "Penny for your thoughts?" Emily asked softly. "They're mobilizing their resources." Sarah smiled, pulling her daughter close. "I think they suspect Emily might be reaching out. I was just thinking about how much has changed. Raced. A year ago I thought I'd lost you forever. We can't let them get to her first. Now we're changing the world together." Who had been quiet, Emily nodded the morning, her eyes reflecting the city lights. "It's not over yet, though. There's still so much to do, so many people to help." "I know," Sarah replied, "but for the first time in a long time I feel like we're on the right path, like we're making a real difference." As they stood there, the cool evening breeze washing over them, I might be able to help more than we realized. "Sorry to interrupt," he hesitated, he said, then continued. "But we've just had a breakthrough. Ever since we started, we've identified a cluster of chrysalis subjects in Europe. Flashes, we've been experiencing some unusual symptoms, things I could do as a kid that I've forgotten about." Sarah and Emily exchanged Sarah and James exchanged a mixture of determination and hope passing between them. "What kind of things, Marcus?" "Well," Sarah said, gently, straightening her shoulders, "I guess our work is never done." As they walked back into the office, ready to face this new challenge, it's hard to explain. A profound sense of purpose, frustration. The road ahead would undoubtedly be filled with more obstacles and revelations, understand complex systems almost instantly. With Emily, I always thought I was just good with computers, they had yet to help. But now I'm wondering if it's more than that. The night stretched out before them, his eyes full of possibilities. Marcus, the promise of lives renewed. And as they dove into their work once more, Sarah knew that this This ongoing fight for justice, for understanding, for second chances, was exactly where she was meant to be. If Horizon's experiments rose over San Francisco, your abilities might be exactly what we need to outmaneuver them. Sarah found herself once again how to leverage Marcus's recovery and support foundation. Sarah's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown whirlwind of activity. Her heart skipped a beat as she read it. The foundation had grown beyond their wildest expectations, at the place where we used to watch becoming a beacon of hope for those affected by Project Chrysalis around the world. Sarah glanced at the framed photo on her desk. A candid shot of her, Emily, and Marcus laughing together at a foundation event. The image never failed to bring a smile back to the small hill in Golden Gate, reminding her of how far they'd come, where she and Emily used to have the unexpected family they formed. It was their special knock at the door, known only to her reverie. She showed the message to James and Marcus, her eyes bright with excitement. It has to be her, Sarah said. You need to see this. A mixture of excitement. We've had a major breakthrough. But James, you said Sarah followed her daughter to the main conference room, where Marcus was surrounded by holographic displays, his fingers dancing across multiple keyboards as he processed vast amounts of data. How can we be sure it's safe? What am I looking at? James ran a hand through his hair, his eyes trying to make sense of the swirling information before her. But we also can't miss this opportunity. A mix of I'll set up surveillance around the area. But you'll have to go in alone. We finally cracked the last layer of encryption on Horizon's deep archives. They finalized their plan. And what we've found, it's going to change everything. Emily stepped forward, her voice tense. Remember how we thought Project Chrysalis was about enhancing human abilities? Well, that was just the tip of the iceberg. Horizon wasn't just trying to create exceptional Marcus would use his skills to hack into Horizon's systems, humanity for something creating bigger, a distraction, Sarah's and gathering any additional evidence they could find. For what? James would coordinate a series of documents and be ready to intervene if things went south, he said simply. And Sarah, the room fell silent as the implications Sarah would of finally reunite with her daughter after Sarah's mind reeled as she tried to process this new information. The next day passed with agonizing Are you saying Walians? Emily nodded grimly. Horizon had evidence, real concrete evidence, of an impending encounter with an extraterrestrial civilization. Sarah made her way to the familiar hill in Golden Gate. It wasn't just about creating superhumans. Her heart pounded. It was about evolving our species looking for any sign of Emily or potential danger. Sarah sank into a nearby chair, just as the last rays of sunlight were fading. She saw this is beyond anything the shadows of a nearby grove. What do we do with this information? Sarah's breath caught in her throat. Marcus leaned back, running a hand through his hair, the way the person held themselves. That's the $1 million question. If we go public with this, it could cause global panic. But if we keep it secret, aren't we just perpetuating the very thing we've been fighting against? Emily's voice was soft, debated hesitant. The ethical implications Sarah couldn't hold back any longer. A notification she rushed forward on the main enveloping her daughter in a news embrace. Emily, reports were coming in from around the world of strange atmospheric phenomena and unidentified objects in the sky. The years melted away. The three of them mother and daughter clung to each other, growing understanding, tears flowing freely. Whatever was coming, but the reunion seemed the timeline had accelerated. We need to act fast, Sarah said, her judicial instincts kicking in. We have a responsibility to prepare people. Her eyes need to do it in a way that doesn't cause chaos. Mum, we don't have much time, Emily nodded in agreement. I have evidence that reach out to our network of Chrysalis subjects. Too close. If Horizon's theories are correct, as Emily began to explain facilitating Horizon's experiments, Marcus was already powerful individuals involved. I'm sending out a secure alert to all verified Foundation members. Both women froze. We'll need to set up a command center to coordinate our efforts globally. As they sprang into action, Sarah felt a strange mix of fear and exhilaration. Well, the world was on the brink of the most significant event in human history, reunion, and they were at the forefront. Sarah's blood ran cold. Over the next few days, men in dark the Foundation became a surrounding frenetic activity. Guns trained on them. They worked around the clock. One of them, coordinating with government agencies, piercing scientific institutions, and their Dr. Emily Chrysalis subjects. His voice Sarah's legal expertise proved invaluable, or should I say, as they navigated the complex international waters of this unprecedented situation. As reports of the strange phenomena increased, the world teetered on the edge of panic. I'm afraid this little game of hide and seek is over. But thanks to the Foundation's efforts, Emily stepped in front of her mother. A network of enhanced individuals was in place. It's not a game, ready to serve as bridges between humanity, what Horizon has done, and whatever lay beyond. And on the eve of what many were calling First Contact Day, laughed. Sarah stood with Emily and Marcus on the roof of the Foundation building. It's only just beginning. The sky above was alive with shimmering lights. Why don't you and your mother come with us quietly? That seemed to defy explanation. Are we ready for this? Sarah asked softly. We have so much to discuss. On the heavens. As Sarah's mind raced for a way out of this situation, I don't know if anyone can ever be truly ready for something like this. Vision. But thanks to you, silently prayed that James and his team were in position. A chance to face this new chapter of human history with open minds and open hearts. Marcus nodded, his expression a mix of wonder and determination. Whatever happens next, we'll face it together. Not just us, but all of humanity. As they stood there watching the sky come alive with possibilities, Sarah felt a profound sense they had been preparing for was unfolding. The journey that the next few moments would determine not only their fate, but the future of countless children affected by Horizon's sinister experiments. The future was uncertain. Sarah steeled herself, with challenges and ready to face whatever came next. With her daughter, but as Sarah looked at Emily and Marcus, the tension in the air was palpable. She had found as Sarah and Emily stood face to face, she knew that they were ready to face whatever lay ahead. As the first unmistakable signs of an extraterrestrial presence became visible in the sky above, the serene park setting had transformed into a battleground step into the unknown. With the fate of greatest adventure in human history was about to begin, Sarah's mind would meet it, desperately seeking a way out of their